Have you ever cared for a patient whose condition just really shook you up, who caused you to rethink how you're living? It got you thinking how awful it would be if the same happened to you. This month, I'll discuss how getting into the right financial mindsets to grow our wealth can be challenging for nurses, and what you can do about it.
Welcome to the Enriched Nurse with your host, Dan Richmond. Enrich your personal finances, nursing career, and life.
In January, I led a financial empowerment workshop for nurses in Bend, Oregon. We spent a lot of time on behavioral economics and contemplating what holds us back from focusing on our finances. What prevents nurses from smart money management, saving up a buffer, and eliminating debt? There was a lot of really great discussion and reflections. One comment that stood out to me, and I've been thinking about, is how our experience with patients can derail our efforts to save or restrict our spending. You see a patient whose entire life has just been turned upside down, like a massive stroke or an unanticipated infection that lands them in the ICU, or a motor vehicle accident, a brain aneurysm, dementia, terminal cancer. What if that happened to me? The prospect of saving, investing, and spending time being thoughtful with your money just evaporates when its value is questioned. When you're not even sure if you're going to be around to use it, when you're faced with the fear that you won't be able to enjoy the perceived sacrifice that has come with smarter money management. It's easier to neglect it. I'm going to live in the moment. I'm going to work hard and play hard. I'm going to live life to the fullest. I'm going to spend all my money now in case I can't enjoy it later. For many, I think the way this plays out is spending thousands of dollars more in taxes, working extra shifts, paying credit card interest, paying tons of loan interest, panicking when you can't work or your pay is eroded, stressing about money and bills, managing clutter and stuff, things that you bought, often giving it away when the novelty wears off, and spending more for convenience rather than happiness, and just feeling busy and overall tight on time. The problem is we can delude ourselves into thinking that spending our money automatically enhances our quality of life. But that short-lived gratification doesn't result in everlasting happiness. Not automatically. Think about that. Is responding to our fears, our paranoia, is just being reactive? Is that lending to a less stressful lifestyle and better decision-making? And this is where I think it can help to, think of your savings and thinking of having money and making smarter money decisions as having kiss my ass money, a kiss my ass money mindset, to have KMA money. That's a little play on AMA, but instead of thinking how setbacks in life might derail your ability to spend your saved or invested money, have you considered how setbacks might be mitigated with KMA money? Instead of being like, oh no, I'm so screwed, you can tell that setback to kiss your ass. The reality is setbacks, they're going to suck whether you have money or not, but they suck a lot less when you aren't financially squeezed. I think they suck a lot more when you're broke. At least with KMA money, you have a lot more options. I've invested a lot of money, and I'm at the point where I've come to appreciate simply saving more than I have in the past. And by that, I mean savings that isn't invested. It's just totally liquid, a surplus of cash. KMA money, having more KMA money. Knowing that I have the ability, the freedom, options, that provides peace of mind, a satisfaction knowing that the world has just a little less control and power over me. And even if the worst happened and I were to die unexpectedly, I still have that satisfaction. I've had time and freedom. That alone is valuable. I've also come to realize the importance of balance and actively seeking it. I have become such a successful saver and investor that I've actually found it a little difficult to cut back. Even with inflation and reduced buying power, I found it easier to cut back on expenses versus investing in the past. And I actually had to focus and be more intentional recently about cutting back on investment. But it really wasn't until my wife and I were both on an open-ended strike, which lasted 46 days, that I paused some of my automatic investments. And being a part-time nurse, watching inflation soar, and having our wages way below market, that made it a no-brainer to cut back on investing. So thankfully, we were well equipped with KMA money. We didn't need hardship support. We didn't have to go into austerity measures. We didn't have to defer a bunch of our bills and pay them, once we were off strike. We simply reduced how much we were investing, which gave us a lot of cash flow. But even since we got big pay raises and things stabilized, I haven't resumed my previous investment regimen. I mean, it was some time for changes, especially since, inflation has eroded everyone's buying power so much. And while I work part-time and I've always had plenty of life experiences, I do find myself a little busier, especially with the business, than I've ever been before. And so I've been more focused lately on building up my cash position, and I am investing more in my business. And I'm also finding I need to be more intentional about balancing that with spending and rewarding experiences. I mean, just being too busy really just kind of sucks. And most of my career I've worked part-time, and I've really had the luxury of having plenty of time. And right now I have a luxury of having plenty of time to put towards my business. But it does make me busy, and busyness, it's hard to be, quite as intentional with life and balance and your money when you're busy and when you have something else that's taking a lot of your focus. So I get that. But the last thing I want to do is work until I'm in like my late 50s or 60s, withholding gratification, grinding away, and then bam, something really crappy happens. Like my wife or I get a degenerative disease, or we're in a freak accident. One of us has early onset Alzheimer's. I don't want to delay, living a quality life and then just get slammed with something really lame. Like all of our money just goes to our kids or a nursing home or hospital executive bonuses, we're lost in a lawsuit, or we just can't enjoy it because we're no longer young and full of energy. Something that makes all that investment and sacrifice just seem like a total waste. Like you should have enjoyed it sooner. And sometimes I think we see patients who are in this really awful state. And somebody mentioned that at this workshop I was at. And it's a totally valid point. It makes you question, like, am I going to enjoy it? And I think, the odds are by far in favor of, yeah, you're going to enjoy it. And you can't plan against every single negative outlook. But that's one thing I'm really good at. One thing I can promise you. Like, you can't plan for everything, but you can balance living well now while investing in your future. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And that's one thing I'm actually really good at. One thing that I can promise you is that you can save and invest for your future while living life to the fullest now. You can have it both ways. Sometimes you might need to make some temporary sacrifices, but we're talking a matter of months. We're not talking like you just grind it out for decades, retire, and then something bad happens, and you're just like, God, I should have quit my job, or I wish I worked less, or I should have done all these things, right? Yeah, we don't want to do that. So you reach your goals and dreams while putting money aside for later. I mean, you can be smarter with money now and actually enhance your life. I'm not saying it's easy. You have to put some effort into doing it. But as a part-time nurse, raising kids, and we have an awful lot of expensive hobbies. Kids make them even more expensive. They like to do the same things we like to do. Often it requires considering your mindset and being pretty proactive. We nurses have a tough job. Seeing and caring for patients at their most vulnerable, our shifts often require recovery, mentally and physically. It's easier to just reach for entertainment, distraction, short-lived happiness, but it is so much more satisfying to be living a fulfilled life and knowing that you can tell your employer, who's often a source of frustration for us, often a source of sapping a lot of our time and energy, at any time to kiss my ass, to check out KMA, to be proactive and not just be dependent on your job. There can be balance, and you can find it. KMA money isn't about being an arrogant a-hole, flaunting that you have money. It's about protecting yourself from arrogant a-holes who would have power over you. It's about giving yourself more freedom and options. Understanding those potential options can make saving easier. At the workshop, we also spent a fair amount of time on goal setting and reflecting on your ideal lifestyle. Neither saving nor simply spending money means it will automatically be meaningful. You should have some purpose in either. What's the point of managing money differently if you don't know what you're going to use it for? So it's important to, I think, reflect on your current lifestyle and write down what your ideal lifestyle would be. Write down what your goals are. So that's what I want to discuss next, is the importance of having goals, something to align your money and to actually fund it. I value time. When I had kids, I didn't want to succumb to a lifestyle of working full time, schlepping my kids around, just feeling exhausted all the time, sacrificing sleep. I wanted to have the time and ability for quality family experiences, spending time with my kids, but also being able to take care of myself and still do the things that I like to do too, and also spend time with my wife, I didn't want those things to be one or the other. So I didn't want to feel like we had to be in survival mode for the first several years of their lives. So a major way that we did that was we had a lot of financial goals. We had milestones we wanted to hit before we even had kids. So that way we could be way more flexible, have more free time. We saved up enough money so that we could take off the maximum amount of time to be with our kids. We eliminated a lot of debt. We wanted to have low expenses, even refinanced our mortgage after our first child was born. Initially, we had set up a 15-year mortgage, and after we had had kids, had another one on the way. Interest rates were back down to record lows. I was just like, you know what? We don't need to pay off this mortgage early. We need a smaller mortgage payment because that's going to give us even more options and freedom and let us spend even more time with the family. So that's what we did. You can actually make your goals and you can actually tie them to your finances. You can save up money for specific things. You can make financial goals to actually improve the quality of your life in the present, in the midterm, in the long term, in the future. It doesn't have to be an either or. And so, when I look at my income, like I said, we paused some investments that gave us a lot more cash flow. And while we were facing that strike, so you could look at that as, wow, that's like thousands of dollars per month we could be spending. I see it as that's thousands of dollars that just gave me so much freedom and options. And while we were on strike, it's still stressful, but we were still able to go do the things we love. We were still able to go up to the mountain, to go skiing, go snowboarding, do our ski trips. Most of our life was pretty similar, except, we're going to a strike line and not heading to work, both my wife and I. So don't get me wrong. That uncertainty, you can only offset that so much, but it definitely helps. So writing down what your goals are and what you would like and figuring out how you can actually fund those, tying those to money, can be pretty helpful. I find it can also make making money decisions a lot easier when I know I want to save up for a special type of vacations. Like in the past, when my wife was pregnant with our first kid, we knew it was going to be difficult to get a bareboat sailing certification. That is a special designation that lets you charter, rent a sailboat. And so set it up, funded it. It's an expensive trip, planned it with some friends, went to Hawaii, did a American Sailing Association week-long course on a sailboat, and got certified. And, we were able to pay cash for that. We were able to plan it out. My wife was pregnant at the time. And it's often just as simple as writing these things down, making it specific, having there be a timeline, having it be relevant to what you want to do now, and then automatically applying money for it, budgeting, not even having to consciously do it. Just open up like an online savings account attached at your current bank. Open up a separate savings account and then automatically have money go to it and label it. This is my goal. This is my bareboat sailing trip goal. It doesn't have to be hard. So in addition to setting goals for your life and how money can be used to actually fund those, it helps to consider how you view money as well. Do you view money as time, as a tool, as a taboo thing, this dirty thing? How do you feel about it? My time is valuable. So I say that. I hear other nurses saying this more and more. But, I have to wonder in this day and age with internet, social media, and just having a smartphone in your pocket all the time, I have to wonder, is that still true? Do I still really act like my time is valuable? Because sometimes I'll pull out my phone and I'll look and see, how much time I spent on it the last week. And it's just like, wow, that is an insane amount of hours that 10, 15 years ago, I just was not spending staring at some stupid device. So, that alone might be proof that you're not living life to the fullest. Check your screen time, your phone time trends. I think that's partly why we also are feeling we lack time. And also, I think that spending so much time online can really distract us and cause anxiety and make us even feel less likely to make smart decisions with our money or save, because we're just constantly being bombarded. That's one thing I've noticed about the internet, the amount of data, social media, online. Have you ever looked up something online and then all of a sudden you got like an ad following you around the internet, advertising to you now for that specific thing? The amount of tracking, the amount of information that is out there about us to try to exploit, manipulate us into spending our money. It's really kind of stacked against us now if you're not paying attention. So if you truly value your time, you got to keep in mind, we nurses tend to trade our time for a paycheck. But if you truly value your time, time is money. So you should be pretty careful how you're spending your money and actually looking at it and seeing, is this reflective of the true lifestyle I want to live? Is this reflective of the goals that I say I have, the values that I have that I want to live by? Am I living my ideal lifestyle? You're trading your time for a paycheck. Is your time really valuable, or are you spending it staring at a phone, doom scrolling, and being suckered into buying a ton of stuff? So lifestyle creep. So this is another mindset, another phenomenon that's pretty typical. I see it happening with nurses. And this is another thing, that having goals, having some purpose, being more intentional with how you're spending money, how you're viewing it. As your earnings go up, lifestyle creep, lifestyle inflation, we tend to just spend more money. So nurses, we frequently have the ability to work extra shifts, often getting pay raises based on our experience. If you're unionized, you're probably negotiating pay raises every couple years or so. So as your income goes up, you tend to just spend more if you're not paying attention, if you're not being careful, if you don't actually have some kind of plan, if you're not automatically saving. It's probably just going to get lost to lifestyle inflation. And, that kind of spending, that kind of mindless spending where, maybe something used to seem like a luxury, or it used to be something that you really enjoyed, but now it's just kind of like, it's just more routine. You're just spending more money on it. You've upgraded your lifestyle. Is it really adding that much value? And then also spending for convenience. So as you get busier, you start spending more money. It's like, oh, we're going to go out to eat more. And it can still feel like survival mode. And man, I don't want to just survive. I want to be thriving. That's why I pay attention to where my money is going, and I'm more intentional with how I spend it. I don't want it to just be lost to lifestyle inflation. So it's helpful to write down your goals, write down your lifestyle, and reflect on these things every now and then. So do you find yourself wishing you had more financial confidence, emergency savings, less debt, investing for wealth? Do you wish you had some KMA money? Well, you can get paid to learn all that and more with the Enriched Nurse's ANCC accredited courses. Check out enrichednurse.com for our individual course offerings and membership options. With ANCC contact hours, you can get paid by your employer to buy and take our courses with their nursing CE funds, and that is hardly the best reason to do it, though. It's a good one, but our courses are designed to get you results with real-world strategies and practical applications for nurses. Get started today at enrichednurse.com. Another issue for nurses, I think, is scarcity. Another mindset that can really hold us back is a negative outlook. And this kind of plays into you see bad things happening to patients, We're working in difficult environments often. And man, you add that to the news cycles, the doom scrolling, all the stuff on social media, the negativity. I mean, negativity and outrage, it's just, I feel like it's rampant. I don't know if it's just me, but I go on the internet, it seems news websites, stories seem designed to make you anxious. On social media, it seems like negativity and outrage is just constantly being thrown in your face and just outright propaganda these days. But with the scarcity mindset, feeling like there's not enough, and I think it can be easy for nurses to fall into this feeling because we've been talking about staffing, the lack of staffing for years, and it's just kind of easy to be negative and feel like things are just never going to get better. And I kind of see this even in my current environment. Oregon's got one of the best staffing laws in the country. We have staffing ratios, and staffing is actually pretty good. Like, I'll see staffing that's better than it certainly was historically, but I'll still see nurses kind of negative about it. And I think that kind of plays into this scarcity, negative outlook, which you have to proactively, counter. And it's easier, right, to just be negative or upset about things. I mean, the emotional gain that you get, like from positivity, like something good happens, it's like, oh yeah, you can talk about it to a point, but do you find that it's just easier to talk about negative or lame things or vent or complain? It seems like it's easier, especially around other nurses, to just spend like a ton of time talking about how great everything is, but talking about how just screwed up everything is, or how lame something is, or how negative, or the staffing. It's just staffing. Been talking about it relentlessly. I almost wonder sometimes if we even know how to talk about anything else. And staffing is definitely an issue, and it's a bigger issue in a lot of places, but it's less of an issue in Oregon than it was. Sometimes I'm like, why the heck are we still talking about this particular issue so much when things have gotten better? And well, I think one, because nursing is tough, but two, I think it has to do with just falling into that trap of having a scarcity mindset or a negative outlook. And it's one thing to every now and then there's staffing issues because patient census is way higher than typical, or nurses have called in sick, or to just be running short constantly all the time. Two very different things. But even with your money, having a scarcity mindset that there's not enough money just causes anxiety, right? And it's hard to live a high quality life when you're feeling anxious, when you're constantly feeling anxious. So when we're spending too much time focused on news cycles or negativity, it takes up a lot of mental headspace, and it makes us feel anxious, and it makes us a lot harder to feel like I want to put money away, I want to save, I'm going to be able to spend it eventually. The reality is you probably will be able to spend it. You're probably going to need it. If you look years down the road into the future, you're probably going to be wishing, what the heck was I thinking? Here I am, and I've missed out on all these years of potential financial growth, or I've been delaying gratification, or I've been working too much. I could have been working less right now. There's this thing called present bias, where we prioritize rewards in the present versus long-term rewards. Even when there's major consequences to them, we'll still prioritize the present. And it's important to be aware of this kind of bias, because the more that you prefer things like right now or in the immediate future, the harder it is to plan and see further out the potential consequences of that mindset. And I think the scarcity or a negative outlook just makes it even worse. You have to spend some time. You might have to actually try harder. And again, this is where automating, I think, is brilliant. The more aspects of your finances you can automate, sit down, nail yourself down, you figure, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this. You automate something, you automate a plan for the future, which can be as simple as just money going to a separate account that's not as easy to spend from. And you can overcome these kind of scarcity, negative outlooks, and present bias. So number 4, another mindset that I think is really important, and especially for nurses, and this is another thing I'm seeing, is I'm seeing a lot more materialism and just like the influencers on social media. And I'm seeing it in nursing, promoting luxuries, really expensive stuff, expensive shoes, expensive coats, expensive scrubs, expensive jewelry, expensive wellness routines, expensive God, all kinds of stuff, right? Spending tons of money on med spas, all this kind of stuff. And that's great. I mean, if that's what your goals are and that's really what you want to do, I'm not here to judge. But what I consider a luxurious lifestyle doesn't cost nearly as much money and doesn't require me to have to show up at the hospital. Like, I don't need a fancy car. That means I potentially have to work more hours at the hospital or pay a ton more in interest. My luxurious lifestyle is 5-day weekends, slow mornings, lounging in my favorite outfit, which is a sweatshirt and sweatpants, drinking hot coffee, sharing hobbies with my kids, reading a good book, doing all my outdoor hobbies, playing guitar, surfing, sailing, going up, skiing, mountain biking, all these kinds of things, snowboarding, having ample time and windows to get at least 8 hours of sleep, having lots of free time, feeling that the work I'm doing is actually valuable and important, and having financial peace of mind, knowing I've got KMA money and, I'm not stressed out about how the heck I'm going to pay my bills in 2 weeks or wondering if I'm ever going to be able to retire. I mean, I could really care less about what my neighbors, friends, or families think, and definitely not random people in the world. And so I think social media, again, it just makes us so much more prone to be trying to impress others. There's all these research studies talking about how bad social media is for your mental health. And a lot of it's just not real. A lot of these people are so full of it. I don't care how impressive or fancy their things look. I'd almost say like the more over the top they're trying to show how the more they're trying to impress you, I would say probably the more miserable they are. But that's just me. But I think the research studies, show that a lot of things on social media are fake. It's more designed to sell you things. There's big money, and you see all these people now making tons of content. I mean, there's big money in it. I went through a digital marketing course. There's literally a major aspect of just marketing now is what's called content marketing, which is instead of being like, hey, like get 30% off this particular product, it's more about talking about like the lifestyle and how the product's going to make your life better, but not actually focusing on the product itself, but presenting this picture that's a little more nuanced. So care less about what other people think. I don't care what my neighbors, friends, or families think. Definitely care less about what people think online and don't try to impress people. And you'll save a lot of money. Great way to blow a ton of money and not have everlasting happiness or really improve your quality of life very much is spending to try to impress other people. And then number 5, the last mindset I want to talk about is if I had. And it's funny, my friend and I, who's a fellow parent at my kid's school, we've been doing these morning sing sessions where we take our guitars and we sing. And so he was like, hey, let's do that song by the Bare Naked Ladies, If I Had $1 Million. And it's kind of funny. We performed this song at the school the other day, and it's a fun song. It was fun to sing. It's a great one. And I've also been seeing a bunch of these posts from people in the financial forums that I like to frequent. And it's this idea of I make a ton of money. I hate my job. Here's how much money I have like packed away in investments. Like, can I retire? Can I quit? Should I do something else? Like, can I? And man, the trap of if I had, or once I have this, once I do this, I'm going to be happy, is such an awful trap to be into because, that song, if I had $1 million, like, here's what I would do. It's like, well, I would hope what you would do is exactly what you're doing right now. Because I think if you have a bunch of money in the future and you're able to keep doing the same thing you're doing, except maybe even spend more time doing the things you love, maybe have even more flexibility, maybe be volunteering more, hopefully you'll be doing pretty much the same thing you're doing now, or have just more flexibility to do even more of what you're already doing now. Because I think that means you're doing it right. And man, that's one thing where I just hate to see is I'll see these people falling into this trap of like, oh, once I have this, that's when I'm going to start living my life, or I'm going to make some changes, or, that's when I'm going to cut back on work is once I have this. I really don't like that. I think you're better off to know what you would like to be doing now, and understand, like I said, I'm a part-time nurse. I've been part-time like 17 out of my 20 plus nursing career. I've intentionally worked way less, and I've still, not with really financial sacrifice, and I've had a lot more time to do a lot of things I love. So I'm just saying, like, I know that you can do it, but I also know from working part-time most of my career, like, you don't need as much money as you think to probably pursue your goals and dreams, unless they happen to be, blowing money on ultra expensive stuff that's more materialistic in nature. Be aware of that and reflect and ask yourself, do I know what's enough? Am I doing what I want to do? Can I be doing more of what I want to do right now, even before I've reached some of my financial milestones I've got in my head? Because I don't think people need as much money as they think they do. I think the lower you keep your monthly expenses, the more freedom you have, that alone. And so often that means having a lot less debt. It's going to give you a lot of freedom and flexibility. And this idea that like spending a ton of money, having a ton of debt is going to greatly enhance the quality of your life. I don't think so. I mean, it depends on the person, but to an extent, I'll use debt strategically. But I mean, if you're like drowning in debt and you have to work a ton, you're having to work extra shifts. I mean, come on, like the debt, whatever you're financing is not adding that much value to your life. And so I'll see these people who are like, hey, I've got all this money and I hate my job. My life sucks. Should I quit what I'm doing? Or do I need even more money? And it's just kind of like, no, like you didn't need that. You didn't need as much money as you're currently saying you got to begin with. Obviously you're not doing it right. If you need some amount of money that's, higher than like 95% of the rest of the population. I mean, let alone like think about if you've traveled to other countries that aren't as wealthy as the United States, you also know that happiness is not directly tied to how much money you have. But time is money, and it can certainly give us more freedom. So having the ability to not have to work as much can certainly help. So again, reflect on what is enough. Because if you don't know what is enough, if you don't know what you really want to do, then, once you do hit a financial milestone, you might find yourself not really feeling the way you thought you would, or you might feel like you have to grind away. And I'm certainly not suggesting that you work hard and don't play and don't have any enjoyment in life. I'm just saying that there's a way to do it where you're not sacrificing one or the other. Sometimes, you might have to make some temporary sacrifices, but for the most part, I think nurses can have it both ways, another benefit of the profession. All right, so today we talked about how it is tough for nurses to get in healthy mindsets that can promote financial growth, financial well-being, building wealth, spending our money smarter. When we see patients in really vulnerable states, when we see really bad things happen to people, it can be just a little too easy to be thinking, oh man, what if that happened to me? What if I'm not going to be able to spend this money? So I want you to think a little more in depth. Think of the bigger picture and how just simply spending money doesn't automatically lead to happiness. So we can find ourselves in traps where we're losing money to lifestyle inflation, lifestyle creep, how spending too much money and not saving or investing any can mean we're going to have to work more, can mean we have to pay more in taxes. If we're paying more in interest, that's more time in the future we're going to have to spend working. So think about how you view money. Do you see it as a tool, a taboo? In nursing, money tends to be viewed as a taboo thing. I'm not going to get into that much more in this episode. But think about how you feel about money. Think about how you were thinking about your time and your money. Do you truly value your time? Because if you do, you should make sure you're spending your money pretty effectively then, because time is money. And then also, do you have a scarcity mindset? Do you feel like there's not enough? Are you feeling anxious? Like, do you tend to have a negative outlook? Do you have more of a present bias, preferring things in the immediate, instant gratification at the expense of your future self? It's a good idea to be looking at these things and considering them, and then being more proactive. Also, caring less about what others think. seeking to impress other people is a terrible use of your money. I talked about how I view luxury and my lifestyle is slow mornings, spending more time with family and friends, experiences, having more free time. So caring less about what other people think can be a great way to spend less money. Not saying it's easy. The world can sometimes seem stacked against us. And also ask yourself, are you falling into that trap of once I have this, or if I had this, everything would be better? Because I think if you sit down, reflect on your goals, reflect on your current lifestyle, write down what your ideal lifestyle is, you might find you don't need quite as much money to reach that as you thought. And making smarter decisions with your money, having the ability to work less, feels really good. It can greatly boost your financial freedom, your financial level, your financial wellness, impacts all the other wellness domains. It's definitely worth putting some time and energy into. We talked about KMA money, giving yourself more freedom and flexibility, and being resilient against the mishaps that life can throw at you. So things to think about. Also, when you can, look at how you can automate to get around some of these mindsets. You can automate finances to a specific end or goal, especially savings or investing or paying off debt. Can really help kind of get over some of these traps and barriers that prevent us from making smarter decisions with our money. Pretty easy to automate these days with all the financial products and pretty much every bank, online banking, the internet and everything, your phone apps. It's easier than ever to automate and simplify and actually making smart decisions with your money easier. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you would take the time to subscribe or leave us a review, I would greatly appreciate it. Check the show notes and also check out our ANCC accredited courses at enrichednurse.com. Thank you so much for listening.